Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering here tonight. I want to share with you three true horror stories, not fiction, not urban legends, but real accounts that will make your blood run cold, your heart pound like a drum in the dead of night. As I speak, remember that what you are about to hear actually happened. These are stories of desperation, twisting fears, and moments when the barrier between safety and terror shattered. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the lights flickering, shadows dancing, and then listen as I pull you through each terror. The first story comes from a small, nearly forgotten cabin in the woods somewhere in rural Alaska. A young couple, Emma and Jake, decided to take a break from city life, to breathe fresh mountain air and be alone. They found a cabin hidden among towering pines. No television, no internet, no modern conveniences. Nights were silent, but for the whisper of wind, the call of owls, the cracking of branches under unseen creatures' feet. On their second night, as cold rain tapped at the windows, Emma woke with a strange unease. She felt watched. At first, she thought it was Jake's arm brushing across hers, or perhaps the shadows cast by the old fireplace. She drifted back to sleep. Hours later, she woke again, rigid with fear. The wind ceased, rain silent, and there, at the edge of the bed, crouched low in the darkness, was a silhouette, tall, gaunt, with fingers impossibly long. No face, just a void where eyes should have been, and in that void something moved, like ripples on water. Emma couldn't scream. She couldn't move. She felt cold fingers slide across her cheek, like ice water. Jake slept. Or perhaps he had been taken. She did not know. The figure lingered for what felt like eternity, then vanished, as though sucked into the floorboards, leaving behind only a hollow ache. She rushed to Jake, woke him, but everything was normal. Jake breathing, the room dust motes floating in moonlight, the fireplace dying embers. No trace of the figure save a smear across Emma's cheek, a coldness bleeding into her bones. By morning, they packed up, didn't wait for sunlight, and drove until the trees thinned out, until the sky was free of branches. Emma's cheek healed, but the fear never left. Sometimes at night she feels something brush by, a whisper at her door, and when she looks, there's nothing but darkness. The second tale I tell involves an old hospital. Like many places that once cared for the dying, it held sorrow in its walls, the sort of place people avoid at night. A nurse, let us call her Maria, was working a graveyard shift at this hospital in Eastern Europe. Old building, long corridors where the sound of footsteps echoes endlessly, where fluorescent lights buzz and flicker. On one particular night, Maria was charting patients on the third floor, a wing closed for renovation except for one room they kept for overflow. The floorboards creaked under her shoes. She passed a window overlooking the courtyard and glimpsed something strange. An elderly man, pale, in old-fashioned nightclothes, standing far below, his back turned. She frowned. Surgery schedules meant patients all supposed to be on ward beds, not wandering. She dismissed it as someone disoriented. She stepped past a door to room 312 to get her meds. As she passed, the door creaked open. The man from the courtyard was standing inside the room now, facing Maria, his face featureless under dim light. Maria gasped. The man raised one hand and beckoned. She froze. Her heart hammered. She tried to scream, but only a shallow breath escaped. Then she turned and ran. She didn't bother to see where she was going. Walls blurred, corridors twisted, and she burst into another wing. Her colleagues looked up, startled. She stuttered something about a patient in 312, about an old man. Someone followed her back upstairs. Room 312 was empty. No elderly man, no patient in outdated nightclothes, no footprints, no scattering of dust or evidence. The room they used for overflow had other patients, but all alive, all breathing, all familiar faces. Maria broke down. She later learned that decades ago, an elderly man, all alone, died in that room, and no one discovered him for days. Staff remembered faint whispers, cries at night, but nothing tangible. Maria never returned to that wing after sunset. Sleep eluded her for nights. Every dark open door gave rise to memory of that translucent shape, beckoning. And sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she thought she saw him, standing by the bed, silent, endless. The third story I share is perhaps the most inexplicable, deeply unsettling because no logical explanation suffices. It's about a family in rural Japan, living in an old house that had been passed down for generations. They knew the house was old. They accepted creaks, drafts, the occasional pest. But they did not expect the mirror. In one room, there hung a large ornate mirror with a heavy gilt frame, carved ravens at each corner. It sat opposite a large window. During the day, it reflected beautifully, catching sunlight, shimmering and bright. But at night it was different. The daughter, Aiko, about 12, woke one night thirsty. She went to the hallway, the moonlight streaming through the window, half the corridor illuminated, half in black. She passed the mirror. She was thirsty, yawning, head thick with sleep. In the glass she saw herself, but she wasn't alone. The reflection showed a creature standing just behind her. She spun around. The hallway was empty. Hands shaking, she looked back. The reflection, a tall shadowed figure behind her, face too blurred to read, long hair, limbs too long, unnatural posture. Her breathing caught. She stumbled back into her room, locked the door. She told her parents in the morning. They blamed tricks of shadows. They blamed overactive imagination. But that night and the next, it came again. And then, one night, her grandmother, who never believed in ghosts, decided to watch. She sat in the dark hallway, reading. Midnight came. Silence. Then she saw movement in the window, curtains stir. She looked at the mirror. A smear, a distortion, then the shape emerged. Something stepping from behind the glass, just a foot's length a leg, no details, only darkness pressing. When she blinked it was gone. Grandma's shaking hand knocked the book to the floor. She gathered Aiko and the parents, and they searched the house. No cracks behind the mirror. No hidden passages. No wires, no tricks. The mirror itself, the back of it, was sealed wood, no gap. Still, the shape kept appearing. Aiko became terrified of mirrors in other rooms. She started sleepwalking, screaming. The parents tried moving the mirror to the attic, but each night they heard muffled footsteps overhead. The mirror, wherever they placed it, seemed to influence the house with a presence. One night, when power failed during a thunderstorm, the family huddled in one room. Lightning flashed, revealing in that split second the mirror glowing faintly in the hallway, the figure standing behind the glass, hands pressed against it, eyes burning in the darkness. The thunder rattled window panes. They screamed. When light returned, mirror dark, empty. They burned the mirror the next day. The frame survived, warped, scorched wood. But people say sometimes they saw the reflection of a woman in long hair in the charred frame. Aiko dreams of that face. The grandmother sometimes wakes up with scratches on her arms. They never lived in that house again. These stories aren't meant to scare you for the sake of fear alone. They are reminders of vulnerability, how every creak in the floorboard, every flicker of light, every reflective surface at midnight can carry whispers of something beyond what we understand. I tell you this because I want you to feel the weight of these truths. Not all horror comes from fiction, not all nightmares dissipate with dawn, and sometimes, no amount of logic can ease the chill in your bones. Fear is such a primal thing, isn't it? It clings to us. It lingers in the corners of our rooms, in the spaces just beyond where your eyes can see. When Emma felt something breathe on her face in that cabin, her logic told her there was nothing there. But her body knew differently, the shudder, that pure, visceral panic. When Maria saw the man in old clothes, following her into closed-off wings, the hospital's rules said there was no such patient, nothing scheduled for that room. Yet she saw him. And when Aiko gazed into the mirror, saw something behind her, something that should not be there, her mind, our minds, searched for explanations, tricks of reflection, shadows, illusions. But sometimes explanations crumble. I want you to imagine your own room tonight, the soft hum of your ceiling fan, The muted glow of streetlights through your curtains, the walls you believe are solid, your bed you believe holds safety. Picture shadows pooling in corners, your reflection in a mirror that seems ordinary until it isn't. Feel your heart beat faster. That hollow whisper at midnight could be nothing, or it could be something ancient. The difference between them becomes thin at 3 a.m. These stories sit heavy in one's mind because they came uninvited. None asked for them. None sought acknowledgement. But they demanded presence. Emma never expected what confronted her. Maria never scheduled a ghost in her shift. Aiko never chose a mirror that would trap eyes behind glass. And yet here they are, etched into memory, into dreams, into that moment before sleep when all is quiet and the mind still runs wild. I cannot promise you peace of mind if you dwell on these tales, but perhaps I offer you something more important: awareness. When your light flickers unexpectedly, don't dismiss it too quickly. When a mirror catches something at the corner of your eye, allow that tug to remind you that you are alive, that fear is alive in you. For in its trembling there is meaning. Do you believe in the unexplained? I do. After hearing these stories, after reading police reports, hospital logs, after seeing scars on skin, and hearing voices in wires. Because sometimes the unimaginable is simply something we have not yet named. I tell these horror stories to you now, and as you leave, as you climb into bed tonight, remember how your own pulse feels. Listen for footsteps when none should walk. Pitch your ears to the wind scratching the window pane. For somewhere out there, in the forest, hospital wing, and behind glass, dwell truths that defy easy answers, truths that will stir in your bones, making you wonder if safety is nothing but a fragile curtain keeping terror at bay.